Welcome to the Courage to Succeed podcast. This is where we dive deep and explore the mindsets, the challenges, and the breakthroughs behind real success in business and life. Each episode I sit with entrepreneurs and business owners from around the world who have gone through trials and tribulations, fears, doubts, setbacks and failures, but through courage we're able to rise, rebuild, and keep moving forward. Hi, I'm your host Nem Jojic, and I believe that with courage and the right mindset, anything is possible. So if you've ever felt stuck, unsure, or like you're meant for more, you've come to the right place. Remember, anything is possible and it's never too late. Success comes from courage, not just strategy. Enjoy the show.
It's not the goal, it's the process that makes us happy. Investing is persistence. It's the most difficult thing I've done in my life. Stock market and Serbian piazza is the same bloody thing. Great investors are patient. Warren Buffett is, first of all, a very patient guy.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the Courage to Succeed podcast. This is a very exciting time. This is our first episode, and I'm very honored to introduce Vladimir Đukanović.
Good to see you.
Good to see you. You're a man who is an investor, a businessman, an athlete. What is it that you don't do? What are you not good at?
What I'm not good at, many things I'm not good at. And all of those things that you mentioned, at one point I was really bad at. And you didn't mention the most important thing in my what's actually my vocation. That's being a writer. That's what I always wanted to be.
I call it, you are a philosopher as well.
Exactly. That's actually my vocation. I studied philosophy. That's where my passion is. That's what I'm focused on in my entire life. The Wall Street career that everyone is focused on was just means to an end. Yeah. It was the way to make money. It was very simple, and to live a comfortable life. I was always interested in technology, and especially artificial intelligence, but not now, because it's in the past few years, of course, we have this explosion since ChatGPT showed up, and I was lucky enough that my book, Blistanje, which was published in Serbia, which is actually coming out for the US market in a few months, under the title Glitter.
Glitter, okay.
Exactly, is actually that's the compilation of my philosophical works for the past 15 years, studying philosophy of artificial intelligence. That's the thing, which is kind of a new ideas that have developed in the past 30 to 40 years, as the artificial intelligence was kind of taking its foothold. Philosophers started thinking about that, and that community was, I can say, neglected for many years because the topic wasn't popular, and especially wasn't within academic circles. That approach to artificial intelligence wasn't accepted until recently. I would say in the past 5 to 10 years, especially Professor David Chalmers, Professor Nick Bostrom, and stuff like that, philosophers who have pushed this topic up front, which I think is the key. I think philosophy, although neglected in the past few decades, because it's still the key. We must remember what philosophy really is about. Philosophy is the study of this universe. Philosophy is science, philosophy is society, philosophy is what we live. And philosophy of artificial intelligence is probably the most important segment of philosophy today, because it tries to understand what artificial intelligence is in terms of its ontology, and it's also in terms of how we can use it and not have it as a threat. And my book, my idea was like, okay, I can, instead of writing academic papers, as I'm not part of academic world, I decided to do that through novels. So that's my goal now. I'm writing my second novel, my third book, and a second novel, which also has to do with future. It has to do with artificial intelligence and society, the way I see it, how it's going to develop in the next 50 to 100 years.
I mean, it's such a deep subject, especially nowadays. AI, I mean, like you said, ChatGPT has blown up. I mean, in 5 years' time, no one's going to use Google.
No,
I mean, I'm personally ChatGPT. I've got the app on the phone. I've got obviously on the laptop.
Yes.
I'm using, especially in the last few months, more and more ChatGPT, and I think that the overarching feel is more people are leaning more to ChatGPT than Google.
Well, I mean, I think so too. You have to remember, Google search did revolutionize the way we find info, the way we find data, and they did play their role. Of course, Google is working on their AI. The Google's not going anywhere. Although some people too. We are invested in Google, by the way. So and we believe in that company. But artificial intelligence is simply it's the new animal, because it's the first technology that carries real threats. Okay, we do have, of course, nuclear armaments. We have, arms and all that stuff. But in order to use arms, you need a human behind it. To pull the trigger. So that's it. So it was always a human who is, doing the killing. But what's happening now? We are, for the first time in history, we are creating an intellectual competition to Homo sapiens, and that's a game changer. That's a game changer. And fundamentally, you have two different schools. You have two different schools in philosophy, and actually, I want to write a history of philosophy of artificial intelligence because it's an interesting topic. But again, time is, I need more time. You have basically two schools. One is kind of the Ray Kurzweil, the famous how should I call him, visionary. Is behind the school that says, okay, everything's going to be fine. We're going to develop. It's just another technology. It's all going to be nice and dandy. Don't worry about it. And then you have another school. I would say probably led by Professor David Chalmers, who I think is one of the most brilliant philosophers of today. Read his stuff. He's quite important. He basically say threats are immense.
Terminator 2.
Exactly. And even if you go that, because what he set out to do, he is offering different scenarios of how human society will develop with artificial intelligence. And in each scenario, it's very difficult to see that humans are going to come on top. And his arguments are very strong, and they're valid and they're logical. So which is the first requirement in philosophy, and they're very powerful. And that's the threat that we are facing. And my book, again, we'll call it Glitter because it's going to come out for the U.S. market in the English-speaking world under the title Glitter. Actually talks about all those threats. I of course try to do that in a fun way through action and novel, and to bring that subject. Hopefully, my mission is to bring the subject of artificial intelligence away from technology and view it more as a social phenomenon.
Let's go back just two steps.
Sure.
You obviously, philosophy is one of your passions. Wall Street investing was the vehicle you used to have a living.
Yes, exactly.
Make money, right? Because I haven't heard of any philosophers who are rich.
Unless
they're making books and you know what I mean.
They were back in the day,
Back in the,
but not too many. Well, I obviously, I left Yugoslavia at the time in 1992 during the war, and the country was falling apart, and I imagined, obviously, I started studying philosophy in Serbia, in Belgrade, just literally started, and then I moved very quickly. I was imagining that, I'm going to become a philosopher, and then Microsoft is going to come, and Bill Gates is going to say, hey, Vlad, you're going to be the chief philosophy executive here. I'm going to get paid millions to, but it didn't work out that way. That was my wet dream, I can say, but it didn't pan out. So like very quickly, once I was studying in Indiana at a place called DePaul University, which is a small private school in a small town.
So wait, hang on.
Greencastle, yeah.
In 92, how did you get out? How old were you in 92?
I was 19 years old.
So you finished high school
20
here?
years. I was
okay, so you started university
I studied
here?
university here, exactly.
1 year, 2 years?
Exactly. I was literally in the first year, studying, and I hated it.
How did you get out of the country in a war zone at that time?
I got an academic scholarship from them, and then I went to the US, and then I went 6 months before I started the school, and I got an academic scholarship.
Did you apply or how?
Exactly.
Okay.
I applied, and then actually at the time, the US was providing many schools were providing scholarship for international students, and then the interesting thing happened. I was actually in my second year. Of course, you pay your school, but you need money for room and board. Obviously, you're always short. Yeah, when you're a student, you're always short. Yeah. So then I received a scholarship from something called, that was a program called Supplementary Grant Program for Students from former Yugoslavia. Okay. And that was started by Open Society, which was formed by famous, for some people, infamous investor George Soros. There are a lot of stories about that man. Yes. Many negative ones, a lot of negatives, but
that was a positive one, though.
He was one.
He was financing that.
He's a great guy. I don't give a damn what anybody says. Yep. He gave that money, no strings attached. I'm like, and the funny thing is I was pretty much the first one to receive that, because what happened, of course, you're chasing money, you're always short money. So, actually one of the advisors from my school said, hey, there's this scholarship, in New York, they called us, they need kids from former Yugoslavia. And I was like, man, I filled out so many of those, I can't. Yeah. So actually, I did fill out the form, And the funny thing is, usually when you receive a scholarship, the scholarship is paid to school, Usually that's how it works. But the funny thing is, I just received a check after a couple of weeks, handwritten. Really? Bang, 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 Vladimir Đukanović. And the funny thing, the amount was exactly double what I asked for. So I was like, but you got all it's the US, so you got all the sweepstakes and stuff. I was like, man, was this some kind of scam or something? What's going to happen? Yeah, so I ran obviously to our administration office, and I asked, there was a famous lady there, Anne Rambo. I was like, what the hell is this? It was like, oh man, just cash it quickly. I was like, but what am I going to do? And why did these people send me like this? Doesn't make any sense. So obviously we called them up in New York, and they said, oh great, you called us. I mean, they didn't even have my contact. That's how funny it was. There was no internet back then. I have to remind you, this was about 1 year before 94, when first the browsers showed up, and we only had emails. And actually, he started the program to help. He took $5 million to help all these kids from former Yugoslavia. Yeah. And then they asked me, it's like, do you know any other kids? Because we can't find anyone. That was the problem, Yeah, we have to find kids, who are studying here, so we can help them out. So obviously then I was, calling my friends. It's like, hey, do you need money? Do you need money for scholarship? Just right there. And then actually what happened, because I wrote down, I filled out the form for like one semester, thinking what they need. So they just wrote me a check. Oh, here's the money for 2. I was like, okay. Actually, I'm sorry. I wrote the request for a year. They thought but the form was only for one semester. So so it was nice. So as a good old Balkan boy, I went out and bought a car.
Well, it's a really interesting story, because yes. I mean, the first thought that came to my mind is those sliding door moments. And let's be real, when it comes to obviously wars and all that in the Balkans, you're 19. That's the age where so hypothetically, so like I said, sliding door moments. If there's that grant's not there, there's a chance that your life has gone a completely different trajectory.
No, absolutely, and that's what people don't realize. And even I know I would have finished that, but there are some people who really who at that moment were like they were done. They couldn't pay for school, and there's some people already decided to, okay, that's it. I'm in the U.S. and you're there as a student, but I had to leave the school. Then you become an illegal immigrant. Then you have to do all those odd jobs. So lives of those people was clearly changed. I mean, what people don't, it's always why I was attracted to the whole thing, and then I really helped them out to find those kids, and why the foundation was called Open Society, because George Soros was a student of the famous Austrian philosopher Karl Popper. And Karl Popper was probably he's the guy who actually defined what fascism and communism truly are, and why he intellectually explained through his book, which is called Open Society and Its Enemies. And in the world of philosophy, that's a monumental piece of work. Which basically, he was an Austrian. He was an anti-fascist, obviously, during that time. And he outlined in that book, on those 800 pages, like philosophically, why authoritarian regimes cannot work out in the long run, and why they're fundamentally unethical. That's the key. So, Open Society does have I would say, a firm intellectual foundation. Obviously, the fact that George Soros is also an investor and a speculator, who broke down the Bank of England, which is kind of fun.
Yes, he did.
He's not loved in many parts of the world, especially among authoritarian regimes, radical right wing or left wing people.
Yes. So, is this a segue? And again, I don't want to harp too much on this topic. It's a really interesting topic. Like this whole topic is for another podcast completely. But I'm just this open society and all that. Was that a segue to the whole globalist agenda, where it's a one world government, one religion, all that? No. Okay.
No. So it's all fucking conspiracy theories, created by morons and idiots. There's not going to be my next book is about one. It goes down that path. It discusses the society 50 years down the road, which could be one government, but we are so far from that.
Well, let's rain check. Maybe we do another podcast in regards to this.
Absolutely, we should, because I know a lot about that. I mean, it's just very simple. So many countries, so many cultures, so many languages, blah blah blah. You're not going to have one man running it for a long time. You may have one machine running it. That's much more probable than having one, because intellectually and physically and in terms of military and economic power, absolutely impossible. Why the hell should Russians ever agree to have someone from, let's say, Anglo-Saxon world run them? That's not going to happen, and the vice versa. Same thing with Chinese, which China, which exploded in the past 30-40 years. You think the Chinese are going to allow some white man to be their overlord? No, ain't gonna happen. So that's all bullshit. Really, so you're not gonna have Chinese, Russians, Europeans, Africans sit down. Let's have a pre-secret society. Although my next book does have that plot, because it's a novel, so it's fun.
Okay, you're blowing my mind here, brother. You just slow down here. My mind's racing, trying to catch up. Okay, so that's awesome. Let's now look. Okay, so you got this scholarship. You're in the States. You're in Indiana.
Yeah, and I loved it. Yeah, I'm loving it.
19 years old.
Yes.
Did you learn English, or did you learn English back, or did you?
No, my English was horrible. And that was tough. And then especially it was very difficult because I wanted to study philosophy. Oh. And then that was. But that's one thing. Throughout my life, I was very determined, to do certain things, and. That's when people ask me how do you do stuff, I don't know, you just wake up earlier than anyone else and you just do it, but I don't have those soft ideas, these clubs, that club, eat this food. No, just sit down and do it. So actually what I did, I really sat down and I started studying English. I started really focusing especially on vocabulary. And when you read a philosophical piece of work in a language that you can barely understand, it's fun because it takes you like an hour to read a page. But the good thing, you know that page by heart. So the benefits to that, and then the way you actually end up understanding that language is really concrete and very deep. Because you went you went the other way. You didn't study the language, by let's learn grammar, let's go do this, let's do conversational thing. So that was the fun part.
So your passion for philosophy would not stop you learning it even in a different language?
No, absolutely not. Even if I had to do it in Swahili, I would do it. Absolutely, because that's what I care about. I really, because I really care about this how the human society develops, And philosophy is the discipline that actually explains that in detail, for every aspect of life.
We have ethics, no idea.
You have epistemology, you have ontology, you have all these segments that actually come together, which is kind of from if you look at modern philosophy, which I would say René Descartes is obviously a monumental figure, which sat down. He's the man who intellectually sat down and said, okay, I see this complex world around me, and you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna start from scratch, and I'm gonna determine what's really true and what's just something that we think about. And then he came with his monumental works and Cogito ergo sum, and then that's kind of the foundation of the modern philosophy and everything that we are doing today. So that's for me, that's unbelievable. That's unbelievable that you can sit down. So you don't have to be you don't have to be rich, you don't have to be this, you don't have to be anything. So you can sit down and simply contemplate, and that's the fun part. And then the key is when you contemplate is to write things down. And that's what I'm trying to explain to kids today. Reading is important, but even more important than reading is writing. If you really want to create your worldview, you must write. You cannot have a clear and concise worldview if you don't write it down. Even if you're insane, even if you're totally out of whack, if you're like left wing, right wing, this and that, if you're woke, you have to sit down and you have to outline your thoughts, because if you don't, it's all a big waste of time.
Get it out of your head and onto the piece of paper.
Exactly.
But you mentioned a really
because piece of paper we find the fallacies in your arguments.
Yes.
That's why for philosophers it's very easy for me to argue with anyone, because people are it's kind of like I don't know, like it's like Tiger Woods playing golf with amateurs, because people if you don't write things down, it's very difficult to find fallacy in your argument if you just talk to people and you discuss things, because you will lose your train of thought and you will not be able to find. But the arguments don't have to be true, but they must be valid. That's the key.
I grew up in Australia, and philosophy is it's foreign. I knew of it, but you just think of those old people and writing and all that. But you mentioned, philosophy now in the Western society today. It's like what? But you mentioned something really important.
But again, the most important things are happening there. What happened with philosophy? The philosophers of the past, I would clearly say the past 4 or 5 decades are to blame. They became too technical. What does that mean? The books became cumbersome. The way of thinking became way too complicated. And when they got divorced from a regular everyday topic and trying to set, to argue things that will actually further our development and our progress. And that's the thing. So philosophy kind of got lost in the past 4 to 5 because many subjects were discussed for many years. Many issues were resolved, because again, science and everything you see around you, the very foundation is philosophy. That's how philosophy started, Philosophers, whether it's Pythagoras, whether it's Socrates, these people try to learn what the world is all about.
Yeah.
So that's why we had huge discoveries. That's how Galileo came about. That's how all these people who created this planet. I mean, just look at around you. I mean, this studio, look at this technology.
Correct.
The foundation of this Microsoft is philosophy.
Yeah.
Nothing else.
Yeah.
You
mentioned the word contemplate, and I think that's a really powerful word because in today's high impact, high stress, high speed society, it's people really have time to contemplate. I was actually just mentioning to Mirko just in the car how a lot of these very successful people have a certain period of time for thinking.
That's the key.
Thinking. So it's like, okay, from 9 till 10, do not disturb me. I'm thinking. And I think if I remember correctly,
that's why golf is good. Golf
that's
is perfect.
Right. And that's why you like golf too, huh?
Yeah, I love golf. I'm obsessed with the game of golf.
You know what? Well, that's how we met because watching you on the Business Preacher podcast, I was never into golf.
Yeah.
I went to the Belgrade Golf Club. I took lessons, and I got the feel of why people are addicted to golf. Yes. I felt it.
Golf is like life.
Talk to me about that.
Why? Because, if you look at other sports, if you look at basketball, if you look at Australia, like rugby or like any other
footy or soccer,
all those sports are physically very active.
Yes.
If you play basketball, my son is 12 years old. He plays it. He had a great game the other day. Now Sunday, they have a very important game. Once the action starts, instinct, everything that you learned now comes through, in a sense, through automating your movements and very little time to think. When you play that, because everything, I mean, movements in basketball today, you're talking about a fraction of a second. If you look at Jokic, who is absolutely amazing, and you think about that guy, he's not athletic, he's not that. I mean, but his reaction time and the way he thinks about that game is, he's like an AI machine.
Yes.
Golf is different because that ball sits there, and you have all the time. Think about it. You have all the time in the world to prepare for the shot and to execute. And the funny thing is, you have the ball, you think about it, you do it, and then you mess it up. And walking between strikes is very curious when you mess it up. Your personality comes out. Your emotions come out. My first boss at JP Morgan, I mean, unfortunately, he's not with us anymore. Fred Lexo, when we go, it's like, okay, Servo, you're playing golf now.
Servo.
Yeah. He said, be careful what you do. People are going to judge you by the way you play golf. And you act there. Absolutely. So, for example, if you're a cheat, if you're a thief, that's going to show up in golf very quickly. If you because it's very easy to cheat in golf.
Yes.
Super easy to cheat.
Yes.
And it's very easy to lose your reputation on a golf course. Mm-hmm. And I judge people now, like quick judge them by the way they play golf and they act on a golf course.
Yeah.
Because my experience is like those people, the way they act there.
Yeah.
That's how they act in life. That's how they act in business.
Golf is a microcosm of life.
It really is. It really is. It shows how you handle the difficult situations.
Yes.
Patience is an incredible thing. If you play in a tournament, and things are slow, so you have to wait. And patience is something, for example, that that's one thing that I had to learn. When I was young, I was very impatient, and I thought that was a virtue. But impatience is actually pure stupidity. And you have to learn that being patient is what and then in life, especially investments, if you're investing, great investors are patient. Warren Buffett is, first of all, a very patient guy. And he doesn't care what happened around the globe, around the world. He's patient and he waits, and then he makes big moves. And that's the key in life. wait, be patient, wait for the timing, but then going big.
Going big.
Yeah.
Well, it's a perfect segue. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the boy from the Balkans, 19, went to the land of opportunity.
Land of opportunity really is.
Yeah.
The US
Well,
really
everyone says it, of course.
still is.
Still is, 100%.
It's a country with many issues. It's a country with many problems. But for me, I moved from a communist Yugoslavia, which was falling apart,
Yes.
because that was the destiny of that country, and it's the destiny of any authoritarian regime and every dictatorship.
Mm-hmm.
And
You thought that's destiny?
there was a country.
authoritarian.
There was a country of deception. There was a country of lies. There was the corruption of absolute power. There
Yes.
was the country of it's simply, it was the country, founded on lies. That's it. Just like most of these countries, nonsensical, nonsensical slogans,
Yeah.
bullshit.
Yeah.
There was a my guys posted a thing the other day. Forget the guy's name. It's embarrassing, but that's fine. He's one of the Serbian writers, and he was on some podcast, and the guy tells him, Yugoslavia, but you could sleep on a bench. The guy said, in that country. He replied, yes, because they took away your house. That's exactly what happened. People would literally take your property.
Yeah.
And it was usually the worst people from your neighborhood,
Yeah.
the scumbags, the druggies, the alcoholics, the uneducated bums who actually took power. And that's and that's exactly what happens in the system. And those systems always fall apart. It's their destiny. So I went from there to Greencastle, Indiana, for example, where very, very simple little town. Yeah. Very religious people, which was very strange to me because in Yugoslavia religion was like no. It wasn't banned, but it was like if you're religious in Yugoslavia, you were like a village idiot. They would consider you stupid, you're blah blah blah, this and that. I went to all these people. I said, oh my God, I'm an agnostic today. Obviously, back in the day I was an atheist, and then but these people are much better. I mean, these people are better than people that I was surrounded with in Yugoslavia.
Because they had faith.
I don't know what they had, but they would help you. Yeah. They were open. Yeah. There were no hidden agendas.
Yes.
And they would in the beginning, I was.
How was that for you?
You come from a society that's very close that I hated. I always hated it. Yeah. But I go there, but I was like, well, when you come from a communist, when somebody offers you help, you're like, what do you want?
Be wary, yeah. What's the catch?
And then, I don't know, my professor's wife would say, hey, we're going on a vacation, you know what? Why don't you stay in our house? I was like, my God, what does she want? She didn't want anything. She left me the house. She left the car with the tank full. With the tank full, and with the fridge filled with the stuff that I like to eat. And I was like, where are the cameras?
Yeah.
Where are the little bugs?
Yeah.
What do these people want from me? They want to help you. And that's something that was a revelation for me.
Yeah. Okay.
Coming from that society where I was I was a street kid here. I was not, I was not naive already by that time.
You were street
I did
smart.
some things. I was very street smart.
Yes.
I was a fighter on the street. I didn't give a shit about, so I went there.
Yeah.
Not as this a naive 18-year-old rich American kid who doesn't know anything, but but I went with, so I quickly learned that my attitudes and my outlook was totally wrong.
How many years were you in Indiana?
4 years. Cold, yeah.
And so let me paint the picture for you then. So you're a boy from Serbia, street smart, wary, not trusting many others, Indiana, religious.
That's the key that you said. I trust everyone today.
Yeah. And then I want to hear.
And this is the most disgusting thing that these societies create are untrusty people. Because you live in a system where you have to watch your back constantly because someone will come and stab you for real. Whether that's the government, whether that's the police, whether that's your teacher, whoever that is, that's the system.
Are we talking about the Western system
no,
or the Balkans?
No. I'm talking about the communists. I'm talking about dictatorships.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yes,
That's what they create. And then when you go to a society where people they don't, that's probably the most successful thing that I did in my life. I turned everything around. I said to myself, you have to start trusting people.
Yes.
Because if you don't, you're not going to get anywhere.
Yes.
JP Morgan didn't hire me because of conspiracy theory. They hired me, they need a smart kid for good at math.
And that's what I wanted to get into. So obviously the 4 years in Indiana, obviously people are trusting you. You're learning that, it's okay to trust people.
Yes.
But then you go into New York, you go into Wall Street where
Absolutely.
It's dog eat dog. How did you deal with Indiana?
It's the same thing. It's the same thing.
Okay.
It's the same thing. First of all, very quickly, me and a couple of my friends, my Slovenian friend and a small group of friends that I have, we realized, okay, how are we going to make money in this, once we finish this? And then I was like, oh my God, there's this Wall Street thing. That's how it was back then. In Yugoslavia, we didn't really know what Wall Street is all about.
What did you finish in Indiana?
I studied economics and philosophy.
Economics and
philosophy, exactly.
Okay.
And then obviously you apply. The good thing about it's a small private school, a lot of people are on Wall Street, so there's a huge alumni network.
Yeah.
And that's how we got our jobs.
Gotcha.
We through our alumni pretty much,
Yeah.
I tell to serve through connections, which they often talk about. But no, even when you get there, it's the same thing. That's nonsense. Once you get there, you have to trust people around you in that company. You have to trust your colleagues. You have to trust those reports that you read. And you have to trust that system will create new value.
Yes.
And from that, increase GDP and increase standards of living. And you have to. Of course, there's a lot of stories about Wall Street
there is.
I have to blame my colleagues, because there's this, aura around Wall Street, which is, I think, nonsense. Which creates. It's a job just like any other job. You wake up, you put your suit and a tie, you show up there. You do work longer hours. You do work on big numbers usually. Yeah. So that's why sometimes compensations are, larger than in other industries. Yeah. But again, it's simply you have to trust the system. You have to trust the concept of capital markets in order to participate. And that's why people who come from like, let's say, communist countries, it is very difficult. That's why China did a revolutionary. Deng Xiaoping did a revolutionary thing when he decided, okay, this is not working out. This is pure shit. We need capital markets.
Yes.
And this is actually what he did. I say, he opened up security. No, they decided we're gonna create capital markets. We're gonna have a stock market. We're gonna have a bond market because that's the only way to finance progress. Period.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. And so, really, the kind of preparation for your work in Wall Street and beyond was set in Indiana.
Yes.
It would have been harder, and again, I'm just assuming from going straight from the Balkans straight to Wall Street, it's too much of
It's impossible.
Yeah, okay.
It's pretty much impossible.
Because of the mindset more so than anything?
Just look at the history. There's not a single person who took that route.
Well, that's why I was so fascinated when I heard about you.
Yeah.
I was so fascinated because you were the guy who basically did all your education here.
Yeah.
And then went and, at the end of the day, you were nearly a decade in Wall Street. Yeah. So it's not, you weren't there. It's not like you were a bench player. You were there for 10 years. So you did something right.
In New York for a long time, but my career in finance lasted almost 20 years, And then, my goal was obviously, my goal was always, to create capital and to live happily ever after so I can do other things, which is pretty much right.
Yeah.
Comfortably. People say, it's like, because I've been officially retired for some time, but they say, is writing a job. For some people it is, for me it's not. It's just saying, look, it's my job to play golf. No, it's not my job to play golf. Play golf because I enjoy it, just like you go to, you go to a vacation or stuff like that. For me, writing is that.
Yeah.
I can't wait to get up in the morning and write. No, that's just how writing works.
What do you like when you say write? What do you write? Like the whole philosophy? What do you write about?
But when I decided to write novels, many people do want to do that. You underestimate how difficult it is to write a novel. That actually people will read.
So you don't have you don't have a ghostwriter?
No, hell no. No. Don't say that to a writer.
You don't use use ChatGPT then?
No.
Okay.
No. For research, yes, but if you want to, once you create your style, the key is to that's very easy to figure out whether you have your style or not. I actually, when you start writing, you usually write 3, 4, 5, 7 pages, and then you set it aside, and then after a couple of weeks you read that, and in the beginning, it's shocking how shit it is.
Okay.
And pretty much all writers that I met in my life, people who actually are good writers, went through that thing called, oh my God, this is pure shit.
Yeah.
Because you read other writers, if you read Dostoevsky and then you take your thing and you feel realistic, you're going to be disgusted.
Okay. Comparison is never
and
a good thing.
And I was a fighter all my life. And every time I was down on the floor, my first thing, I'm getting up and I'm getting you. And this is the most gut-wrenching thing ever. Because then you tear it apart, you sit down again and you write that thing and you put it aside. And you go back to it after a week or so. And it's still.
Okay.
Tenacity.
Yes.
That you need to endure is insane.
To become a writer.
Become a writer because everyone thinks, okay, I have a great idea. I'm going to sit down and go write. Ideas are cheap. I get ideas for like literally hundreds of novels.
Yeah.
Execution is the key.
Yes.
So there's that artistic part of writing, which is the idea and how you're gonna. But then there's craft, and people always underestimate the craft part of it. It's kind of like it's like a carpenter, You may have a great idea to build like the most beautiful kitchen, but the knowledge and skill that it takes to build that kitchen is immense.
Yeah.
So the reason I write a blog is there's this Serbian writer called Marko Vidojković who actually edited my Serbian version of Blistanje, which is again going to come out for the English speakers under the title Glitter. Told me it's just like sports. If you want to be fit, you have to go to the gym. Yeah. If you're a writer, you cannot be, okay, I'm going to write a book, then I'm going to do anything for 2 years. No, you lose the skill. Yeah. A carpenter that doesn't work for 2 years, he's going to lose a part of that skill. Maybe not everything. Yeah. No, but this is not like riding a bicycle. You're not going to jump back in and go. So my blog is my gym. Okay. And my newsletter, has nothing to do with creative writing. It's pure technical. Yes. Pure technical Wall Street reporting. I do write it in a way. It's very important for me to, when you read that it's not just another report. It's very important for me that I connect with you, because this is the first investment letter in Serbo-Croatian. And that's the key when you want to educate people, to educate them in their native language. Yes. I always underestimated that, and that's why this digital education is very significant, because people would ask me, Wall Street, I would give people books, I don't, all these books written in English, obviously. Here's this, but it took me a long time to realize that people was like, but this is a technical book. It's very, even if people who speak English here locally, they speak well, as you know, but not well enough to study in English.
Gotcha.
So that's something that we kind of discovered in the past 2 years, that people have to read and learn in their native language. And that's a big discovery in this whole thing. So again, when you go back to writing, so now I write in Serbian and I write in English. It's a kind of dual thing.
And keeps your skill set up.
And keeps your skill. It's like
Keeps
literally
your
so my thing, I don't work out, I don't go to the gym, but my gym is like get up in the morning, go to my local cafe, get my laptop and write. That's the thing. And I try to write at least 1 hour per day. Which is again just to show you the level of competence and kind of like who's Michael Jordan and who is like a local player. If you take Stephen King is obviously a very famous writer who wrote some amazing It, Shining, all those fantastic books. It's interesting. He's very disciplined. He writes, I think, usually 3 to 4 hours every day, and he usually writes 3 pages. And when you say this, like, okay, an average person says, oh, that's not that difficult. It's super difficult. I try to write 1 page per day. I'm not there yet. I can write half a page a day.
Really?
Yeah. So I can do, my productivity is 1/6 of Stephen King. What's the difference between me when I complete my manuscript? There's a lot of work to edit. When he submits his manuscript, people say you may find 1 comma or 1 dot or one.
That's that level.
It's mind-boggling.
Yeah.
Again, you know why? Because he's Michael Jordan.
Yes.
And I'm a local, 3rd league,
Yes.
a local player. And that's the reality of it, of course, he's super talented. His ideas are mind-boggling, but his skill
is
unreal.
Yeah.
His skill is simply unreal.
Yeah.
And that's the part that people, when they start writing, they underestimate that it will take you. I started writing, literally was my 2015 New Year resolution. I said, okay, now you're going to write a novel, or you're never going to write a novel. It took about 7 years. While in reality, if you look at what Stephen King is doing, he writes 3 pages. If you multiply that per year, blah, 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 that's 3 books per year.
Yeah.
It took me, first one, I think I had 6 editors altogether.
Yeah.
Editing the book.
Blistanje.
Yeah, exactly. So it's the most difficult thing I've done in my life.
Really?
Writing a novel that actually people read. Not one of those things that you can write a book. Obviously, there are many books. You can write it. You can print it. You can print 300 copies.
But if no one reads it, if no one reads it, what's the point?
Exactly. Yeah. You'll have your family or friends. They'll get it. They'll never read it. Obviously.
Yeah. You give them
but
free
you
copies.
must show up. I don't know if you're a writer. You must today, for example, show up with that Goodreads. The system Goodreads. The people must find you.
Yeah.
And they must judge your work. I mean, that's how this. This is how this
fascinating.
This will operate.
That's another topic to discuss.
I
I have never heard anyone speak in that depth in regards to writing a book. I mean, I get that it's hard, but look,
it's pain in the ass. But now, for example, obviously the second book, but that's a technical book that I wrote about investments. That book took a few months. But that's my knowledge, because that's easy.
That's your bread
But now, for example, I'm writing my second novel, and I'm determined. I started writing that novel on a skiing trip, March.
Okay.
And my goal is it has to be done by the end of the year. So we'll see. First one was done 7 years. This one I'll try to do in 9 months. So we shall see.
And that's the second version of
Blistanje. No. That's a completely new book. It's a new book that's going to deal with gender and future.
Gender.
Yeah. The main topic is gender.
Must be a very short book. There's boy and girl, male and female.
I don't know. We shall see.
Or is there more than one gender?
We shall see. Maybe there's only one gender.
Oh my god. Maybe one. Okay. Okay. When that book's out, we'll do another podcast
just to keep people intrigued. Okay. Maybe there's 50 genders. Maybe there's 2, but maybe there's only one.
Okay. Interesting.
Interesting.
You're a fascinating man, Vlado. You're a fascinating man. Okay, so the whole purpose of creating this podcast, again, I've been wanting to do this for many years, right? So again, I get 2015 takes you 7 years, so I get it. And unfortunately, humans it's out of our comfort zone, and we get afraid for whatever reason. Yeah. That's what it is.
But that's what writing is all about. Writing is like every morning you're out of your comfort zone because you have to deal with different issues. And if you really want to write things that are true to you, you have to challenge yourself. Again,
talk to me.
You have to change your opinions. That's the key. Change your bloody opinion
about yourself,
about everything. Once you find the evidence that goes against your argument, abandon it rapidly. Don't be married to your stupid arguments.
Okay, so you're looking at. Okay, so you're talking about every day is you're getting out of your comfort zone to write. Is it a mental thing that you're not enough, that you have imposter syndrome, that because I understand not just me, but in general, if you start comparing if I start playing basketball now and I start comparing myself to Michael Jordan.
You can.
I'm going to kill myself because you know what I mean? But if I compare myself to me yesterday and my aim is to be better today than yesterday.
But you have to change, that's why you have to challenge your own arguments constantly. And especially when you're super passionate about something, it takes balls to go against yourself and say, whoa, wait.
So you got to let go
of
that.
And that's why my second, my third book, it's artificial intelligence, about philosophy behind it. It's where we're going. It's why this is important. And my second one is about gender. And it's about it's sci-fi. But I wanted to challenge my thinking about men, women, transgender people, gay people, and generally how we think about sex and everything else.
Okay. So
that's why I'm saying maybe
it's a very interesting topic.
So maybe we go down the path of, many genders, or we go down the path of one gender.
Let me throw this at you. When you say that every day when you have to write, you've got to kind of stretch and get out of your comfort zone. Is that because you've got to drop the ego? You've got to drop the pride. You've got to drop the limit or the certain belief.
Absolutely, and that's especially difficult for men like me, who are very proud, who are very,
Balkan men. We have the biggest egos.
Absolutely.
That's our biggest strength and biggest weakness. Would you say?
Huge weakness. Jump into conclusions
too quickly.
Getting physical too quickly instead of So that's all. That's all that I have in me. It's in me. I am an animal from this region. And and you have to. If you don't challenge that beast, you're not going to go anywhere.
Interesting. Okay, I want to fast forward now. Obviously, you're a very successful man. You've accomplished a lot. I mean, we're probably just scratching the surface, but just from the accomplishments of getting out of ex-Yugoslavia to having a career in Wall Street that's a lot of people's dreams, right? That you had investment funds. I think you went to London. You had an investment fund in London. That you have this website now, Vladimir Đukanović.com, right? Where you now an educator and you have courses to help people, especially in the region, to educate them about other investments, not just because obviously here we spoke about this before. Everybody thinks of investments here as in property. And
absolutely, because we spoke about that. I mean, the level of education in generally Southeastern Europe, when it comes to economics, budgeting, etc., is it's a disaster. As I mentioned, my oldest son goes to English school where they have 7 subjects, and one of them is like business and economics. One of his cousins, she goes to school. She's got something high school. I think she's got 17 subjects, and not a single one deals with like a very important thing for life, which is budgeting money, how to save money, how to invest money, and how to create a retirement nest that's going to make your life comfortable when you're old. And the people are very delusional here, because what communism did says, don't worry about any of that. We'll take care of you. Don't. You're just a number here. You don't get to decide, how you're going to retire. You don't get to decide where your money goes. And that's why people didn't have any options but to shove their money into real estate.
Yes.
And that's why this region is the poorest in Europe, because of the generationally, these people make wrong investments and live delusion. I mean, what's sad, investing is very, very easy. If Warren Buffett tells his own wife, just buy S&P 500 and forget about it.
Yeah.
Why do you think, if you live in a village in Serbia, then you should do anything else? If one of the most honest investors ever, I mean, I really, am a big fan of Mr. Buffett.
Yeah, a lot of people are. Yes.
Just follow what he does. He's got, his company, his published company called Berkshire Hathaway.
Yes.
They publish this annual report.
Yes.
And actually, I try to imitate his writing in my newsletter, because when you read some annual reports of some companies, it's super boring, and it's like nobody wants to read that. It's like a bunch of technical mumbo jumbo. His annual reports are fantastic. They're all stories. They're all life related. They tell you clearly, why do I own Coca-Cola for I don't know how many decades?
Yeah.
But he tells you in very simple terms, because it is fundamentally simple. And then what's annoying about Wall Street, you go to some, analysts, and they'll write your report. It's like a bunch of it's painful to read. That's what I'm saying. And it doesn't have to be, so that's the thing. And that's the sad part about this week. Now this is all changing, really. I mean, the response to this is it's mind-boggling. I really underestimated that. But the key is to educate people in their native language. That's the key.
Yes.
This whole thing, okay, 1 in 1,000 people will pick up a technical book in English and will actually go through it. But other 999 will not, because they need to read. And actually, I was like a couple of my, God kids, I would give them the book, and, they were great students, unbelievable students. It's like, I was like, why are you on the 6th page? What the hell is wrong? But and then you quickly learn. You were educated in English. I was educated in English. It's different, You can't just shove a book in some other language. So even if they speak it colloquially, it's difficult.
You know what I think about that is that it's more so the mindset than anything, because it's the fear. And I'll give you a perfect example. You've gone from this country, you've gone to Indiana, but your passion for philosophy did not stop you from learning philosophy in a different language.
Absolutely. That's the key.
Whereas here, people know English, they get a technical book on the stock market, but they don't do it, not because they don't know how to read, but their passion to learn.
You have to remember, the first, you read the sentence, you don't really get it, And then people, oh my God. And then, people, you got to remember, people, when you're on your own, how many times you were reading something, you don't get it, you think, God, I'm so fucking stupid, It's like, happens to me today, like probably several times per week. Yeah. And, most of people, when they run into that, they're like, okay, shut this aside.
And why didn't you
don't like the feeling that we don't like feeling stupid.
Yeah, that's the ego.
There's the ego, but that's why you have to bring it closer to them, and that's, bring it to them. And, you have to remember the context is important, because, explaining investments to people like in Croatia, Serbia, blah, 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 who have certain illusions, so that's why I talk about, big mistakes, about like investing in real estate, investing in agriculture when you live in the middle of the city and stuff like that. All these naive ways of trying to make money where people actually invest and they lose everything. Mangulica pigs and all that stuff. So I had to bring that closer to their experiences so they can see the mistakes, as opposed to showing them American experiences where like 60% of American population is invested in the stock market, So it's a very different experience. So it's like you have to put it in a context. If you don't, it's very, very difficult, and that's why the first chapter in my book is, what is an investment? People don't know what is an investment here.
No.
Just the very definition of investment. People don't know the difference between equity and fixed income. And I'm not talking your average, bus driver. I'm talking about oligarchs. In Serbia, some of them don't know. Yeah.
No, I get that.
And that's it. And you can say, okay, these people are stupid. No, they just like lack of education. It's very simple.
The business acumen here is at a lower level than in the States.
Mm-hmm.
Why? In America, it's all about money.
Yes.
And they know. I listen to some normal people, some of the business acumen, not just in investments in the stock market or real estate, it's at a higher level.
Yes.
And I'm saying, even in Australia, it's a higher level.
You're educated because, as soon as you get to the school system in the US, you're gonna come across budgeting. You're gonna come across how you should save money. You're gonna come. Your teacher is going to teach you what stock market is in elementary school because your teacher is invested.
Yeah.
If you take all the teachers in elementary schools in Serbia, I don't know how many thousands of them. If you find five of them that are invested in the stock market, I'll be surprised. So that's the fundamental difference. And of course, then when you're not educated and you're fearful, fear comes from lack of education.
Yes.
Prejudice kicks in. So the funniest thing is like, the stock market is falling apart. Oh yeah, it's been around for 300-400 years. and I always try to compare that to Serbian piazzas,
Yeah, market.
Market.
Yes.
Kalinic piazza has been around for like
fruit
God
market
knows.
for people who
Exactly.
don't understand. Fruit market.
Well, maybe the market for tomatoes is falling apart now, but the actual market piazza is not falling apart. It's there. It's been there through First World War, Second World War, through 90s. It's been there.
Yes.
The market is there.
Yes.
What's happening with goods, what's happening with prices is a totally different thing. But the actual market, and I compare the perfect, stock market and Serbian piazza is the same bloody thing. It's the same concept. It's absolutely the same. You come to the common place to exchange goods. Very simple. Here you're exchanging tomatoes for money. Here you're exchanging money for shares of companies or bonds.
You've simplified that. I've never heard that said, but you can see why you are the conduit between Wall Street and
Eastern European.
But can you see that? That's why I think what you're doing is brilliant with your website and becoming that educator.
Yes.
I want to go a bit more forward now. I want to talk about the whole purpose of this whole podcast was to teach entrepreneurs or people who want to get into entrepreneurship that failure, adversity is part and parcel of getting to the success. Tell me, I want to get to understand more some of the areas that you faced adversity, whether in Wall Street or in the businesses after that, and give us an example of some of the mindset of the adversity and how you overcame that.
Well, when
there's something come in mind, like a particular period in your life where things weren't going your way.
Persistence. I learned through investments. It's much more important to be persistent and disciplined than smart.
Who taught you that?
Wall Street.
Specifically, what do you mean?
Specifically, take 10% of your income, then 20 as you become 30, 40, hopefully one day you get to 90% and invest it religiously every month. Religiously. Like the people that go to church, they go to liturgy, they go to this, do it religiously, and you're going to be successful.
Say that Say that in layman's terms for the average.
Absolutely. You're making X amount of money, take 10%.
So you take 10% of your money and you do what?
And just put it in either ETF funds, or pick certain stocks to some people.
Yeah.
Open annual report of Mr. Warren Buffett, see what he's doing, copy that, but do it. I met many, many brilliant people in my life.
Yeah.
The most brilliant ones with probably highest IQs are not great investors.
Okay.
Because often they overcomplicate things. Smart people search for problems and to solve problems. Investing is persistence. if you are tenacious about that, it's almost impossible not to be successful, because there's this force in universe. It's called compound interest.
Yes.
And Albert Einstein said that that's the critical force in universe. Why? Because small incremental increases over huge period of times create humongous systems. You know, when you look at the universe, and if you go back to Big Bang, what they call the inflation, that's it. Universe inflated. Some people say quickly, some people say slowly. It depends how you view it. But over the period of time, things become huge. And when we look at the universe today, it's humongous. Although it's been here only, 13 billion years. For some people, that's not such a. For some people, it's a long time. For some, it's not. So, but that's the curious thing. If you make 10% on average over the period of 30, 40, 50 years, you're going to become wealthy. No matter how little you put aside per month. No matter how small that amount is. And that's why, and what I learned from rich people in the US who are generationally wealthy is that there was some grandfather, some great-great-grandfather who started that within their family. That guy, that initial in your family person who started doing that, he didn't take $10 million in 1822 and said, okay, now we're wealthy. No, he took $10. And okay, now we invest in this. Then another month. But what's the key? He taught his son and his daughter to do the same. If you do that, it's impossible not to be generationally wealthy. It's impossible. If you take 3 generations, it is impossible not to be wealthy. That's the sad fact of investing. And a lot of people choose not to do that.
Again, we're going back to that mindset, that fear. Tell me, in regards to investing, how much is it mindset and how much is it technical know-how?
Analyzing a company is probably the easiest intellectual endeavor that I do. It's super easy. Every company has revenues, yes, profits.
Yes.
That's the foundation of everything. The number one thing is are they increasing their revenues? Means are they expanding their business? Good, they are. But then look at the profit. Are they increasing the profit? In the same proportion or maybe even larger?
Yes.
What you want the company, let's say in theory, that grows 10, 15, 20%, and they increase their profit in the same proportion or even more by being more efficient and having a better margin. That's it. That's the end of story. You can do all the yes, because I'm an expert on derivatives, and I can start talking in technical terms. I can confuse you now.
I'm already confused.
And your head will spin. And that's kind of what some of my colleagues do.
Yes.
But fundamentally, it's like owning a goddamn bakery in Serbia. What's the goal? You want to increase your revenue, the money that comes in every day. Yesterday, people came in, you sold your bread, and you got $1,000. Next month, you want to have $1,100 or whatever.
Well,
it's as simple as that. And that's why people who are really determined and persistent, once you find the formula that grows your business, just stick to it. And that's why sometimes really, really smart people they get lost. I mean, they're looking for more, and there's none.
What do you mean they're looking for more?
When you're looking in the business, you can have a very simple report that I explained, or you can take Apple, and every quarter you can write 1,000 pages. You can literally write 1,000 pages because that's how complex the business is. Fundamentally, it boils down how much money they got in and what's the profit. So that's the key. So when you look at, so when you have a bakery, when you own one simple shop in Belgrade, or you own Apple, fundamentally is the same. I mean, the goal is the same. Bring in the revenue, and let's have that a portion of that revenue stays in your pocket. That's called profit. And it's fundamentally and intellectually, it's super easy. I mean, you know.
You make it sound so easy, but
that's
you're
what
an
I learned
expert
from
in this.
Mr. Warren Buffett, because you know, when you listen to him, you understand everything he says.
Yes.
But then you listen to some Wall Street CEOs, and you're like, what the hell is this guy? Duration and this and that and blah blah blah, and you're like, what the hell is this? And then people become fearful, you know, because you don't have the knowledge. And then Mr. Buffett comes in and he says, oh, look, Coca-Cola is sold in every village on the planet, including in Africa. And that's a very, very good thing. And I was like, yeah, that's a very good thing.
He did say that. I remember.
Yeah, of course, because that's the key for that business. He says, why you invested that business? Because you know what? The capital they have, they have a great return on their capital. That means, you know, I bought this mic for $100, and every month I make another $100 from this mic by speaking into it. That's return on your capital. Super easy to calculate. Imagine if your whole podcast was you and this mic, and you pay $100 for this, and you make $100 for it. It's a very good return on your capital.
Yes.
You should stick to that mic.
Yes. What would you
Now
say?
you can do the analysis. Now you can write 1,000 pages about you and this microphone. Of course, you can do like whatever you want. You know, you have German philosophers who spend centuries.
So I love how you
life.
love how you simplify these things, because the stock market and investing. It is so complicated for people, but I love how you can just simplify it in such a way. But not everyone, I mean, obviously now I'm hoping that a lot more people will see this and understand that, you know, you're definitely an expert in this, and that you have programs and courses to teach that. But I think fundamentally, people tend to overcomplicate things, and you really just simplify.
You know what was the huge problem? Because the way capital markets developed, you know, they did not develop evenly. Obviously, the Western world developed the capital markets for now 300-400 years, from the first stock exchanges in Netherlands, etc., New York, London, etc. And then we still have countries that don't have stock markets and develop capital markets.
Yes.
That's the problem. So people, let's say in the US, are on a certain level. As I always like to joke, you know, drug dealers in the US know a lot about stock markets. They're invested in stock markets. You know, when they make money, you know, selling cocaine, they invest in Microsoft. You know, they don't. That's how they make money. That's how, because that extra capital they make, you know, drug dealers are like, you know, they do what they do. You know, they do have extra capital, which they often invest in the stock market, you know, because they know even if they went to the shittiest school in the US, they learned something about that. Their teacher, you know, was invested. Their cousin, their uncle was invested. So that's the thing. And so what happens with the literature now, and that's kind of what I recognized. When you take a book in the US about stock market, it assumes certain level of knowledge. And it starts, let's say, if it's from 0 to 100, it starts from 17. And when a person who lives in a country where there are no capital markets, they're missing that part. 0 to 17. That's why my first chapter is 0.0. What is an investment? What is the definition?
It's great stuff.
So I created my own definition of investment just to bring the people, okay, and when you take the definition, any proposal that comes from anyone, you can take the definition, you can run that proposal against the definition and see if this is an investment or not. Because the, juxtaposed to investments are speculations. And, you know, you should, an average person who wants to have a good life, who has a decent career, should not speculate ever. You should not buy Bitcoins and all this stuff, blah, blah, blah. There are people who do that, who are very successful, and I'm not going to deny that.
Yes.
Fine. But an average person should not speculate.
It's too volatile, those type of markets.
It's too volatile.
Yeah.
It's too risky.
Yeah.
Their investments, they're super risky. You don't need to make 70% a year. You need to make, 7, 8, 9, 10% a year
Yes.
to live happily ever after, especially if you go to that next generation and transfer that knowledge to your kids, to your grandkids, etc., etc. So that's the fundamental thing. So that's why I started the book from like, okay, you must, and now you're really, what I'm proud of now that I go, these kids, these young kids here, that when I go lecture, they know that lecture by heart, they can recite it, and it's fun.
Yeah.
That I kind of wrote a textbook that people love to read,
Yeah.
and that's the. But again, all the examples, that book is in the context of our economic existence.
What's the name of that book, just so people know?
Tajne investiranja. In Serbian, like
Okay.
for
That's in,
Serbo-Croatian speakers, tajne
yeah.
investiranja. You can find it Vladimir Đukanović.
Translate that's secrets.
Investment secrets,
Okay.
which is not,
are you
there are no
planning-
secrets basically. But
Well,
Yeah.
now you're telling everybody in secrets. But are you planning on having an English version of that book?
actually, my editor in the US wants to do that. I don't see any point in that because, but just because there's so many books there, that market is overcrowded. While in Serbo-Croatian, this is pretty much, and this is the fundamental. They've been, there are some books in Serbo-Croatian written some by local people, but those
Yes.
people have no experience. They have they
Yes.
cannot recommend you a decent investment because they have never invested.
Yes.
So
Gotcha.
that's the whole thing. Well, you got to remember when you send a newsletter to somebody that tells them, "Hey, put your money into this." It's a huge responsibility, man. Again, my newsletter is what I do, how I invest.
Yeah.
So it's like it's your responsibility if you want to do that. But I do have a fiduciary responsibility, which
You
I
do?
was,
You have
which I was
fiduciary?
absolutely.
Or, a
because-
moral one, I understand.
Absolutely.
Because you are an-
if I was taught something the first month at JP Morgan, you have a fiduciary responsibility
Yeah.
towards people who hand money over to you. That's the key. I don't manage money anymore. I don't care to manage. But even that newsletter, I think deep and hard before I tell people, okay, this is what I'm doing. Think about doing this.
Gotcha. What book has changed your life?
Open Society and Its Enemies by Karl Popper. Book that I mentioned.
That's the one we mentioned.
That's why I mentioned it, yes.
Best investment you ever made, money, time, or otherwise?
JP Morgan.
Yep. One word that defines your entrepreneurial journey.
Mule.
Mule. Talk to me about that.
You got to be a mule, especially if you're a man. Be a mule.
Mule.
Yeah.
A mule is the mules
Yeah.
in the sense that
In the sense of that animal, yes.
I know that, but
Yeah.
in America, the mule is
Yeah.
the guy who has the drugs and goes through the borders.
No, I'm not talking about that
Explain
mule.
that.
I'm talking about actual mule. It's about, was the tremendous ability of a mule
Yes. What?
is to take unbelievable burden and carry the bloody thing. Just load up. When your knees are breaking, load up even more.
Yeah.
That's the key. Because you will be amazed, again, going back to my first boss, which he was very concrete. Be a mule, and you're gonna learn a lot in life.
Yeah.
When everybody's on your back, put another person on the back,
Yeah.
and you know what? You're gonna be shocked how strong you are. But you have to do that.
Yeah.
When you're feeling that the whole planet is on your shoulders, put another planet on that shoulder.
Yeah. And that was, it's very powerful because basically what you're saying is that push yourself and you don't know how strong you are if you keep going.
You'll never find out.
You-
You'll never find out until you
Push
keep
yourself.
putting that burden.
Did you ever think of what happens if your back broke?
Nothing, you'll die. That's fine.
But you're not really going to die, but in the
That's
sense
fine.
of what?
But that's it.
You
If
get
want
fired.
symbolically, physically,
Yeah.
that's fine. You get fired. So big deal.
You come back to Yugoslavia or you get another
Big
job
deal.
and that's it.
Big deal. You get.
So there's no fear of failure.
No, absolutely. You got to remember, I'm an existentialist philosophically, and
Yes.
for me, the fundamental a myth, you know, is the myth of Sisyphus, you know. It's
The what?
Is the Sisyphus is basically
Sisyphus.
pushing that rock on the top of the hill,
Yes.
just to see that rock roll back.
On the
That's
other
the
side.
key. It's not the goal, it's the process
Yes.
that makes us happy. What's interesting thing in business,
Yes.
and many wealthy people will tell you that. You work on your business. It's stressful. It's this. You're building it. It takes years. It takes effort. You go through financial crisis, emotional crisis. Maybe you even get divorced because of that business.
Yes.
Maybe or maybe you break up relationship that you didn't. You go through a lot of stress, but you have a goal.
Yes.
And at one point you sell that business. That's the most stressful. You're doing that deal, these guys agree, my price, their price, etc.
Yeah.
The deal is done, you sign it, and then that money hits your account.
Yes.
Most often, there's a feeling of euphoria,
Yes.
which dissipates very quickly, and it goes into depression. Because you realize, what now?
Yeah. Yes.
What do I do now?
Yes.
I had a clear purpose. I was pushing this rock up the hill. That was my goal. And I got there. And now the rock is back on the bottom. I think I'm a different man because there's a number. Now that's a digital number, some account.
Mm-hmm.
You're not. So everything's the same. You're the same person. Emotionally, you're the same. Maybe you develop certain skills during that process. But that's often people, when you go deep down, people will tell you that's exactly what they experience.
Yeah.
Because we do have that existential relationship with the universe
Yes.
as these fleeting biological beings that we know we're going to disappear from this planet, and then in a few hundred years no one's going to remember us.
That's right.
And that's the deep feeling that we all have. And that's why like the same thing with publishing. I went through hell publishing my first book. Although one moment I was like, fuck it, I'm going to just print 50,000 books. I'm going to hand it out. That's not the way to go.
At the piazza.
Don't do that. Exactly. Because that's again, there's a frustration with the process.
Yep.
Once I published the book, it was the same feeling. You just got deflated.
Uh-huh.
What now? You know what now? Next book.
Yeah. Yeah.
Find another hill and
Find
push
another
that bloody rock up.
Yeah.
Is it meaningful? Is it meaningless? Maybe.
That's our philosopher that's coming out, and that really helped you deal with the self-doubt or the fear, because that's what stops people. I'm pushing this rock, I'm losing
and what's the
French.
Point? What's the point?
Yeah, what's the point? But
And
what about if I fail?
And is it a legitimate to say this is meaningless? Yeah.
Yes.
It's absolutely for most of existentialists like I am. If you read people like Albert Camus, Soren Kierkegaard, and great existentialists, Jean-Paul Sartre, Simone de Beauvoir, you are gonna find that this the fun thing in life is life itself, the very process of living and pushing that bloody rock, whether that's family, that business, whether that's art, whether that's writing, whatever it is. The very process, we love the process. We hate the result. And result is failure or it's success.
Yes.
But fundamentally, we even hate that success because when you realize it,
It's fleeting.
Exactly, because you got one. So if you don't have the next thing, that's why you have, for example, super successful and super famous people who fall apart. We've seen that in music, and often we see that, for example, rock. Because you go there because they're burning to get to that goal.
Yes.
And they get there.
Yes.
But they don't have the next step. They don't see the next hill.
Yes.
If you're standing on top of the hill. And it's all valleys around you. You're fucked.
Yes. Yeah. And talk to me about the process. When you say process of life, of business, do you mean like to enjoy the process? Because
Absolutely.
you're either going to get to your goal or
Absolutely.
you're not.
If the process is not
Enjoyable.
writing is a process.
Yes.
and it's, for me, it's super enjoyable.
Yes.
Playing golf is a process which is very enjoyable. The goal here is to publish a book, have people read it.
Yes.
The goal here is to have the low score in golf.
Yes.
In bloody golf, you succeed very rarely. That's the pain in the ass. Okay, but the very process of playing that game is fun.
Yes.
You win a tournament, it's the same feeling. It's euphoria. Yes, blah, these champagnes, even for the greatest guys, the feeling is like, was the key. The next game, the next tournament.
That's right.
You know, there's the thing. Without that next thing,
yes.
That's why many athletes. It's actually a known thing. Actually, Wayne Gretzky is probably a very great example.
When they retire.
When he retired, they become very depressed.
Yes.
Because although they're on the top of the hill, you know, Wayne Gretzky, we must say, is one of the greatest athletes on who ever lived.
Yeah.
But the guy, you know, the way I understood, he stood on top of that hill, but no hills around anymore. Yeah. No hills for him to conquer
Not in
anymore.
that field. He couldn't play ice hockey.
In his context, you know, it doesn't matter whatever you do. If you're a baker, you know, and you're not going to open the next shop. It's like that's the thing. So that's why existentialism is very appealing to me, because it resolves that fundamental feeling of meaning. You know, finding the meaning or not finding the meaning. Yeah. And existentialism basically tells you the meaning is in the process.
It really keeps you grounded, I feel.
Mm-hmm. Yes, really absolutely.
It keeps you grounded.
Well, it keeps you challenging your own arguments, because you know, if only the goal is your goal, you will. I think you can lose yourself. That's the problem with political ideologies and stuff like that, because they don't really care about the process. They care about the goal, and that's why they often become evil.
Yes, I've been becoming a philosopher within myself the last several months, but I think it's so
every human
so
being
true.
Is a philosopher, whether you like it or not.
Yeah, but that becoming accustomed to the process, the daily grind, and learning to appreciate and love it, and know the end result is the end result. Yeah. You're either going to get it or you're not. Yeah. I have this saying from one of my mentors: man plans, God laughs. Because you really don't have control. Like we get so fixated on a certain goal, and our whole world depends on it. But then what? You get to that goal and then you fall apart, or you don't get to that goal and you fall apart. Yeah. And that whole process, it's gone. You've lost time with family and friends. You've lost like that.
Yeah. So that's the thing. Think about the process and what you get out of it, you know.
Vlado, we are out of time. We're over time. This has been a wonderful conversation. Always. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'd love to have you on for another one, because you've completely blown my mind in your thinking, and especially about philosophy and obviously AI, and we spoke about politics in a sense, and obviously business and all this stuff. But I've had a great time, and I'm hoping you
Same
have
here.
too.
Absolutely. Call up
So
anytime.
So how can people find you?
I can find us on these social networks, obviously. LinkedIn, Instagram, etc. Go to the site vladimirđukanović.com. You can learn about investments there.
Yep.
Blistanje and Serbo creation you can buy through publishers.
And it's going to be in English.
It's going to be in English exactly in a couple of months.
That will be on your website.
It's going to be on our website. It's going to be promoted in the US, etc.
Great.
Again, it's in English. We have an interesting title called Glitter, but it should be.
It could be Shining.
Could be.
Was that there?
No. It's you'll see.
Glitter.
Once you read it in English, you will realize why glitter. There's a specific symbolism attached to that. To that, actually, it was the idea of my editor. It was a brilliant idea.
Okay.
To use that specific term.
Okay, well, guys, that's a wrap. Episode 1 with Vladimir Đukanović. Hopefully, you guys found it as insightful and interesting as I have. Please like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning into today's episode of The Courage to Succeed. If today's episode moved you, inspired you, or gave you a new perspective, please like, share, and subscribe. And remember, anything is possible and it's never too late. I'm Nem Jovic. I'll see you next time.